Throughout history, the tapestry of civilization has been indelibly marked by acts of violence that have reshaped the destinies of nations and empires. Assassinations, those sudden and often brutal acts, have toppled rulers, ignited revolutions, and left an enduring legacy of consequence. Today, we embark on a somber journey through the annals of time to explore 10 of the most famous assassinations in history. These acts, driven by a complex web of motivations, from political intrigue to personal vendetta, have left an indelible mark on the course of human events. Join me as we delve into the stories behind these infamous acts, examining the circumstances that led to their occurrence and the profound impact they had on the world stage. The vibrant world of football, a sport that ignites passions like no other, can sometimes be a cruel and unforgiving arena. For Andrés Escobar, a Colombian defender known for his composure and sportsmanship, a single mistake on the pitch would have tragic consequences. It was the 1994 World Cup in the United States. Colombia, a team brimming with talent and ambition, faced the host nation in a crucial group stage match. In a moment of misfortune, Escobar inadvertently deflected the ball into his own net, sealing his team's fate. The own goal sent shockwaves through Colombia, a nation grappling with social unrest and the insidious influence of drug cartels. For some, Escobar's error became a symbol of national disappointment, and powerful gambling syndicates, who had much to lose from Colombia's early exit, sought retribution. On July 2, 1994, just days after returning to his hometown of Medellin, Escobar was gunned down outside a nightclub. As the fatal shots rang out, his killers reportedly shouted "Goal," a chilling reminder of the goal that ultimately cost him his life. In the heart of medieval Bohemia, a tale unfolds of a ruler revered for his piety and devotion, a king whose untimely demise would elevate him to sainthood. This is the story of Wenceslaus I, Duke of Bohemia, a man whose life and death continue to resonate through the ages. Wenceslaus, a devout Christian, ascended to the dukedom amidst a backdrop of political intrigue and familial ambition. His reign was marked by a commitment to peace and justice, but his efforts to strengthen Christianity in Bohemia earned him powerful enemies, including his own brother, Boleslav. Boleslav, consumed by envy and a lust for power, orchestrated a plot to eliminate his brother and seize the throne for himself. On September 28, 935, as Wenceslaus attended a feast in the town of Stara Boleslav, Boleslav's loyalists struck, attacking the duke and his retinue. Wenceslaus, caught off guard but resolute in his faith, was brutally slain, stabbed multiple times before being run through with a lance. His martyrdom sent shockwaves through Bohemia and beyond, solidifying his image as a symbol of piety and righteous leadership. The 13th century was a time of religious fervor and upheaval, a period marked by the rise of heretical movements that challenged the authority of the Catholic Church. In this tumultuous era, Peter of Verona, a Dominican friar known for his eloquence and unwavering faith, emerged as a staunch defender of Catholic orthodoxy. Peter's sermons, delivered with fiery passion and conviction, attracted large crowds and earned him both admiration and animosity. His primary target was the Cathar heresy, a dualistic belief system that had taken root in southern France and northern Italy. The Cathars, who believed in a cosmic struggle between good and evil, rejected many of the central tenets of Catholicism, including the sacraments and the authority of the Pope. Peter, seeing the Cathars as a grave threat to the souls of the faithful, dedicated himself to combating their influence. His efforts, however, came at a heavy price. In 1252, while traveling from Como to Milan, Peter was ambushed by a group of assassins hired by Cathar sympathizers. As the assassins struck, Peter, in a final act of defiance, is said to have dipped his fingers in his own blood and written the words "Credo in Deum," I believe in God, on the ground. Chapter 4, Nikephoros Phocas, Betrayal in the Imperial Palace. The Byzantine Empire, a realm of intrigue, power struggles, and shifting alliances, was no stranger to acts of violence and treachery. In the year 969 AD, Emperor Nikephoros II. Phocas, a renowned military leader who had restored stability to the empire's borders, became now a victim of a plot hatched within the very walls of his palace. Nikephoros, known for his martial prowess and ruthlessness on the battlefield, had ascended to the throne through a coup, deposing the young Emperor Romanos II. His reign, though marked by military success, was also characterized by a harsh rule that alienated many within the imperial court. Among those who plotted against Nikephoros were his own wife, Theophano, and her lover, John Tzimiskes, a general in the Byzantine army. Driven by ambition and a desire for revenge, Nikephoros had reportedly grown distant from Theophano and taken a mistress. The conspirators hatched a daring plan to eliminate the emperor. On a December night in 969 AD, as Nikephoros slept soundly in his private chambers, John Tzimiskes, along with a group of assassins, stealthily infiltrated the palace. To avoid detection, they disguised themselves as women, their weapons concealed beneath their robes. The assassins stormed into the emperor's bedchamber, catching Nikephoros completely off guard. Before he could even raise a hand in self-defense, he was brutally murdered, his reign cut short by an act of betrayal that would send shockwaves through the Byzantine Empire. Chapter 5. Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, the father of Bangladesh, slain in a coup. In the aftermath of British colonial rule, the Indian subcontinent was a region grappling with the challenges of independence and the birth of new nations. For the people of East Pakistan, the struggle for self-determination would be a long and bloody one, culminating in the creation of Bangladesh in 1971. At the forefront of this struggle stood Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, a charismatic leader who had emerged as the voice of Bengali nationalism. Mujibur, as he was popularly known, had tirelessly campaigned for greater autonomy for East Pakistan, a region marginalized both geographically and culturally from West Pakistan. When his calls for greater representation were met with brutal repression by the Pakistani government, Mujibur rallied the Bengali people to fight for their independence. The ensuing war, marked by widespread atrocities and a humanitarian crisis of staggering proportions, ultimately led to the victory of Bangladesh. Mujibur, hailed as the father of the nation, returned to a hero's welcome in Dhaka, the capital of the newly independent Bangladesh. He embarked on the daunting task of rebuilding a war-torn nation, seeking to establish a secular democracy based on the principles of socialism and Bengali cultural identity. His vision for a prosperous and independent Bangladesh, however, would be tragically cut short. On August 15, 1975, a group of disgruntled army officers, motivated by a complex mix of political and personal grievances, stormed Mujibur's residence in Dhaka. The assassins, armed with automatic weapons, showed no mercy, gunning down Mujibur, his family, and several members of his staff in a hail of bullets. Chapter 6. James A. Garfield, a presidency cut short by assassination. The United States, a nation founded on the principles of democracy and the peaceful transfer of power, has witnessed its fair share of political violence. One of the darkest chapters in American history unfolded in 1881 with the assassination of James A. Garfield, the 20th President of the United States. Garfield, a Civil War hero and a rising star in the Republican Party, had assumed the presidency just 4 months earlier. His term filled with promise and a vision for a stronger, more united nation. His presidency, however, would be tragically cut short by an act of violence that shocked the nation and left a lasting scar on the American psyche. On July 2, 1881, as Garfield walked through the Baltimore and Potomac Railroad Station in Washington, D.C., he was approached by Charles J. Guiteau, a disgruntled office seeker who had become delusional in his belief that he was owed a government position. Guiteau, armed with a .44 caliber revolver, fired 2 shots at Garfield, one bullet grazing the president's arm and the other lodging in his back. The Pacific theater of World War II was a cauldron of fierce naval battles, daring aerial assaults and brutal island campaigns. At the helm of the Imperial Japanese Navy stood Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, a brilliant strategist and a master of naval warfare, who orchestrated the surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, plunging the United States into the global conflict. Yamamoto, a graduate of the Imperial Japanese Naval Academy, was a firm believer in the importance of naval aviation and the decisive role it would play in future conflict. He understood that Japan, with its limited industrial capacity, could not hope to win a protracted war against the United States. His strategy, therefore, was to deliver a swift and devastating blow to the American Pacific Fleet at Pearl Harbor, hoping to cripple the United States' ability to wage war in the Pacific and buy Japan time to consolidate its gains in Southeast Asia. The attack on Pearl Harbor, though a tactical success, ultimately proved to be a strategic blunder, awakening a sleeping giant and galvanizing the American people for war. Yamamoto, aware of the potential consequences of his actions, is said to have remarked, "I fear all we have done is to awaken a sleeping giant and fill him with a terrible resolve." As the war in the Pacific raged on, Yamamoto became a prime target for the United States, his capture or elimination seen as crucial to breaking the back of the Japanese naval war effort. American code breakers, working tirelessly to decipher Japanese communications, intercepted a message detailing Yamamoto's upcoming inspection tour of Japanese bases in the Solomon Islands. On April 18, 1943, armed with this vital intelligence, American P-38 Lightning fighters dispatched from Guadalcanal intercepted Yamamoto's transport aircraft over Bougainville Island. In a brief but intense air battle, Yamamoto's plane was shot down, crashing into the jungle below. Chapter 8. Umberto I of Italy, the King and the Anarchist. The late 19th century was a time of social and political upheaval in Europe, as anarchist movements gained momentum, challenging the established order and calling for the overthrow of monarchies and governments. In Italy, King Umberto I, a monarch who embodied the traditional values of the monarchy, became a target of anarchist anger and resentment. Umberto, who ascended to the throne in 1878, inherited a nation grappling with poverty, social inequality, and the rise of socialism. His reign was marked by attempts to strengthen the monarchy and maintain order, but his policies often alienated the working class and fueled anarchist sentiments. One particular incident that inflamed anarchist anger was the brutal suppression of a bread riot in Milan in 1898. Faced with rising food prices and widespread hunger, workers and their families took to the streets in protest, demanding government intervention to alleviate their plight. The government's response was swift and brutal. Soldiers opened fire on the unarmed protesters, killing dozens of men, women and children. The Bava Beccaris massacre, as it became known, sent shockwaves through Italy, further eroding public trust in the monarchy and fueling anarchist calls for revolution. Among those outraged by the massacre was Gaetano Bresci, an Italian anarchist living in exile in the United States. Bresci, radicalized by the events in Milan and determined to avenge the deaths of the innocent, vowed to take the life of King Umberto. On July 29, 1900, as Umberto attended a gymnastics competition in Monza, Italy, Bresci, who had secretly returned to Italy, approached the king's carriage and fired 4 shots at close range. Umberto, struck in the chest, died within minutes. Chapter 9. Pancho Villa, the Mexican revolutionary, gunned down in retirement. The Mexican Revolution, a tumultuous period of social upheaval, political violence and revolutionary fervor, left an indelible mark on the history of Mexico. Among the iconic figures who emerged from this turbulent era was Pancho Villa, a charismatic revolutionary leader whose exploits made him both a folk hero and a symbol of Mexican resistance. Villa, born Doroteo Agapito González, rose from humble beginnings to become one of the most prominent military commanders of the revolution. A skilled horseman and a fearless fighter, he commanded the loyalty of a large and dedicated following, known as the Villistas. Villa's motivations were complex, driven by a mix of social justice, personal ambition, and a deep-seated resentment of the ruling elite. He fought against the dictatorship of Porfirio Diaz, the interim presidency of Francisco Tras Madero, and the counter-revolutionary forces of Victoriano Huerta. His military campaigns were characterized by daring raids, lightning-fast maneuvers, and a Robin Hood-like image, as he redistributed land and wealth to the poor. Villa's exploits captured the imagination of the Mexican people, making him a legend in his own time. By 1920, however, the Mexican Revolution had run its course. Venustiano Carranza, who had emerged as president, sought to consolidate power and bring an end to the fighting. Villa, his forces depleted and his influence waning, agreed to lay down his arms in exchange for amnesty and a large estate in Chihuahua. For 3 years, Villa lived a quiet life in retirement, but his past exploits and his continued popularity made him a potential threat to the new government. On July 20th, 1923, as Villa drove through the streets of Parral, Chihuahua, a group of assassins, believed to have been acting on the orders of government officials, ambushed his car. Chapter 10. Hendrik Verwoerd, the architect of apartheid, stabbed in Parliament. The history of South Africa is indelibly marked by the legacy of apartheid, a brutal system of racial segregation and discrimination that divided the nation along racial lines for decades. At the helm of this oppressive regime stood Hendrik Verwoerd, the Prime Minister of South Africa from 1958 to 1966, who is widely regarded as the architect of apartheid. Verwoerd, a sociologist by training, was a staunch believer in the superiority of the white race and the need to maintain strict racial separation in South Africa. He viewed apartheid not merely as a political system but as a moral imperative, a way to preserve the purity of the white race and prevent what he saw as the threat of black domination. Under Verwoerd's leadership, apartheid was ruthlessly implemented with a complex web of laws and regulations designed to segregate every aspect of South African society. Black South Africans were denied basic human rights, stripped of their citizenship, and subjected to systematic oppression and violence. Verwoerd's policies drew international condemnation, leading to South Africa's isolation on the world stage and the imposition of economic sanctions. Within South Africa, however, Verwoerd remained a popular figure among many white South Africans who saw him as a strong leader defending their interests. On September 6, 1966, as Verwoerd sat at his desk in the House of Assembly in Cape Town, a parliamentary messenger named Dimitri Tsafendas approached him, ostensibly to deliver a message. Tsafendas, however, had other plans. As he got closer to Verwoerd, Tsafendas pulled out a concealed knife and lunged at the Prime Minister, stabbing him repeatedly in the chest and neck. Verwoerd, caught completely off guard, collapsed to the floor, dying within minutes from his wounds. Outro echoes of violence, lessons unlearned. From the assassination of Julius Caesar on the floor of the Roman Senate to the gunning down of John F. Kennedy in the streets of Dallas, these acts of violence have sent shockwaves through history, leaving an indelible mark on the collective memory of humankind. These assassinations, though separated by time and geography, share a common thread. They have all left a lasting impact on the world. Their stories remind us of the fragility of power and the enduring consequences of violence. As we reflect on these tragic events, we are left to ponder the complex interplay of factors that lead individuals to commit such acts and the profound impact these acts have on the course of history. While we may never fully comprehend the motivations behind these acts of violence, we can learn from the past, striving to build a more peaceful and just world.